Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're taking a look at the Tongan Crip Gang, or TCG.
Yeah, TCG.
And the source material we've got is, well, it seems like an informational rundown, pulling from different places, articles, documents.
Right. It gives us a structured look at how they're documented, how people understand this group.
Exactly. And what really jumped out at me straight away was this connection to a baseball team logo, the Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
Seems, I don't know, kind of random for a gang symbol.
It really does. And the source mentions the Minnesota Twins logo, too. It's one of those things that makes you stop and think,
Yeah, definitely.
how these symbols get picked up and get these whole new meanings inside a specific group.
So our goal here is basically to unpack what this source tells us about TCG, right?
Right.
Look at their origins, activities, symbols, and what it might reveal about gang dynamics generally.
Exactly. Let's dig in.
Okay, so origins, where did they start? The source says Inglewood, California, back in the 70s.
Inglewood. And it calls them a subgroup or a set of the bigger Crip Alliance.
All right, what does that actually mean, though? A set?
Well, think of the Crips as this huge umbrella, and under it, you have all these different neighborhood groups or sets.
Okay.
Each set often has its own turf, maybe slightly different ways of doing things, sometimes its own leadership.
Gotcha.
They're all under the Crip banner, often use the same colors, but they have local identities.
And initially, this Tongan set, they were aligned with other LA Crip sets.
Yeah, and interestingly, the source notes many of those were predominantly African American sets,
Yeah.
which tells you maybe those early alliances weren't just about ethnicity. Maybe it was about being in the same area or, just part of that larger Crip network back then.
But things didn't stay put in LA, did they?
No, definitely not.
The source points to a pretty major shift, a migration to Salt Lake City, Utah, starting late 80s.
Right, and a big reason cited is heat from law enforcement in California.
That makes sense. If things get too hot in one place, you look for somewhere else.
Exactly. It shows how these groups have to be, well, adaptable. They move, they find new ground when the pressure gets too intense.
Uh-huh.
And the source says the Salt Lake City branch actually got going in the mid-'80s. So maybe a bit earlier than that main wave.
Oh, okay. So, groundwork was laid before the bigger move.
Seems like it. Maybe a few people went first, established a foothold, and then others followed when things got tougher in California.
And the specific trigger for setting up in Salt Lake City,
Yeah.
the source mentions intimidation from Latino gangs in the Glendale neighborhood.
Yeah, that's what it says, which, paints a picture of this competitive, sometimes hostile environment when a new group arrives.
Right, you move somewhere new, you run into existing groups, and conflict happens.
Exactly. And that kind of pressure could actually, push a group like TCG to get more organized fast, recruit people for protection, carve out their own space.
Makes you wonder how that whole process works, transplanting a gang culture.
It's complex, and it's not just California and Utah. The source also briefly mentions Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska, Washington State, and even Auckland, New Zealand.
Auckland, wow.
Yeah. Less detail on those, but it suggests, a pretty wide reach, potentially.
It really does. You start wondering how those connections work over such distances. Is it people moving,
Yeah.
online communication, or something more organized?
Yeah.
The source doesn't really elaborate there.
Okay, let's circle back to the symbols, because that's still kind of fascinating. The Texas Rangers logo and the Minnesota Twins, too.
Yeah.
How does a baseball logo become a gang sign? Any ideas?
Well, it's tough to know for sure without, inside knowledge. Gangs adopt symbols for all sorts of reasons that aren't obvious.
Like what?
It could be a play on the letters, like the T for Tongan or Texas. Maybe it relates to a specific event or a member's nickname, something like that. Or it could just be something that started very locally in one specific area and caught on within their group. We just don't have that context from this source.
It definitely makes you rethink gang imagery, though. You expect certain colors, hand signs maybe, but a Major League Baseball logo, it kind of throws you off.
It does, and maybe that's part of the point sometimes. Using symbols that are sort of hiding in plain sight.
You mean like a way to recognize each other without alerting everyone else?
Possibly. It can be a form of coded communication, more subtle than wearing obvious colors everywhere, especially if you're trying to avoid attention from rivals or the police.
Okay, let's shift gears to the criminal side. The source lists a lot of alleged activities.
It does, a very long list.
Starts with things you might unfortunately expect with gangs. Drug trafficking, robbery, extortion, even murder.
Yeah, those are serious, but often associated with organized crime. But then it goes way beyond that.
Right. Burglary, ID theft, car theft, home invasions, credit card fraud, bank fraud.
And then into federal stuff, the theft of passports, driver's licenses, federal documents. That suggests, a certain level of sophistication.
It keeps going too. Witness intimidation, insurance fraud, arson.
Impersonating police officers, both state and federal agents, apparently.
Wow. Plus, prostitution, hacking, kidnapping, extortion by threatening to reveal private info.
Yeah, and even crimes targeting the elderly and disabled, mail fraud. It's quite the portfolio.
It really is. It paints a picture of a group that's involved in a huge range of things, not just, say, drugs or turf wars.
You can almost group them, can't you? You've got the clear, profit-driven crimes, the drugs, the theft, the wide range of fraud.
Right.
Then the violent stuff, murder, kidnapping, arson. And then these other crimes aimed at, undermining the system, witness intimidation, impersonating cops, even hacking maybe fits there.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. The variety is striking, shows adaptability, maybe opportunism.
Absolutely. And the hacking mention is interesting, too, showing they might be involved in more modern types of crime as well.
Then there's that specific incident mentioned, a 2007 federal indictment.
Yes.
TCG members, along with the 18th Street Gang, supposedly conspiring to murder 33 members of an MS-13 group in L.A.
Yeah, that's a really stark example. It highlights the potential for extreme violence, but also the complex web of inter-gang relationships.
It's not just simple rivalries, then. You've got TCG and 18th Street, seemingly different gangs, working together against MS-13.
Exactly. Alliances shift. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your friend, even if only temporarily. It shows how fluid and, frankly, dangerous these dynamics can be. It suggests coordination, shared objectives against a common rival.
Okay, so speaking of who they work with and against, the source lists allies.
Sons of Samoa.
Sons of Samoa and another group called Tongan Life Gangster Crip.
That sounds like there might be some shared ethnic or cultural ties there.
Very likely. That's pretty common in gang structures.
Yeah.
Shared backgrounds can build solidarity, trust, mutual support. Helps with recruitment, too, probably.
And rivals. The list includes Kernstown Bloods, Baby Regulators,
Lennox 13, Park Village Compton Crips, and Carver Park Crips.
So a mix of Bloods and other Crip sets, plus a Sereno gang. Right. Which tells you they've had conflicts across different lines. Could be over territory, drug markets, respect, any number of things. These rivalries can be really long-standing and fuel a lot of violence.
So, geographically, just to sum up, started in California, major presence established in Utah.
Right. Those seem to be the core areas based on this source.
And then these mentions of Alaska, Washington, New Zealand, suggesting, well, maybe a wider network, even if less concentrated.
Potentially, yeah.
How much do you think those California roots might have shaped what they did, or even the symbols they used when they moved to Utah?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, groups usually carry their culture with them when they move, right?
Yeah.
So traditions, symbols, maybe even old rivalries from California could definitely influence how they operate in a new place like Utah.
But they'd have to adapt, too.
Oh, for sure. They'd run into the local scene, new rivals, maybe find new allies. They have to adjust. So those baseball logos, for example, did that symbolism start in Cali and travel? Or did it gain meaning in Utah? Or both? It's that mix of carrying your history but adapting to the present.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. What are the main takeaways from this source about the Tongan Crip Gang? What stands out most?
Well, for me, it's seeing that documented migration, the push from California, the pull or establishment in Utah. That's a clear dynamic.
Yeah, that shift is significant. And the symbols, definitely.
The logos, yeah. That unexpected element and just the sheer breadth of the criminal activities listed. It's not a narrow operation, according to the source.
I agree. It gives you this maybe limited but really interesting snapshot. You see local stuff like those initial clashes in Salt Lake City mixing with bigger trends like gangs moving because of police pressure.
And it reminds you that gang identity isn't always straightforward, especially with those logos.
Right. So here's maybe a final thought for people listening. What does that use of everyday symbols like baseball logos really tell us about how gang identity works or how they communicate? Is it about blending in? Or is it something deeper, more coded, just for them? Does it help hide things?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It really pushes you to think about how subcultures, even criminal ones, borrow and twist things from the mainstream.
Yeah.
repurposing them for their own meaning, their own identity. It definitely shows you need to look past the surface, doesn't it? What looks totally random to us could be packed with meaning for someone inside that group.
A powerful symbol of belonging, maybe.
Yeah.
Hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. Makes you think.